Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to path number 2 on Epic of Pain, and this is going to be starting with Nebula, followed by NorthStar, Destroyer, Photon, Adam Warlock, and ending up with the most annoying fight of Epic of Pain, that is going to be Aegon. Now, I would say that Sentry is kind of essential for this path, so if you don't have him, I would suggest you not to attempt this path. But if you even have it in a 6-star version, bring him in, just ascend him, and he would work well. Now, the way this works is there is going to be a global node by the name of Death by Debuffs, and the only way you can do damage to the opponent is by applying debuff. Every time you apply a debuff on the opponent, you will do 2% of his max HP as damage, and that damage can occur every once in a second. So having that out of the way, the first fight is going to be against a Nebula. Now, she has Force of Will, Galvanize, Give Me Shelter, Outside in, Cold Turkey, and even Punishment. So you can't parry much because the duration of the parry will reduce, and also she is going to auto block a lot from Give Me Shelter. Now you don't notice she's auto blocking me at all because you need to have 6+ debuffs on you all the 6+ buffs on you all the time, so you will counter the Give Me Shelter node. The more buffs you have, the more auto block chance is going to go down. But with Sentry, he easily gets those buffs on him. So right now, I have 20 buffs on me. So there is no chance Nebula is going to auto-block me. So if you use any other champion that does not have buff, you're going to have a very difficult time here. So some other options that work here are going to be Omega Sentinel, because she can easily get all of those armor ups on her. Keep them to 6, 5 and plus, and you should be good. Same goes for your Ironheart. She can also get those armors up on her, and that helps too. And you can also, if you don't have enough armors, you can just use parry and then medium, light, medium, get those incinerates up. And also Nebula is going to go through 2 phases. So for example, right now she is in the shock phase. I can safely parry, but if she auto blocks me, or if I hit her in the block during this phase, she is going to apply shocks on me. So I have to stay away from that. And after the shock phase, if you notice, she is going to go unblockable. Now, during the unblockable, I can easily hit her in the block to create space. I don't need to worry about getting shocked. So the way this works, if you're using not Sentry or not Howard the Duck, the champions who don't have buffs, you have to play around that auto block. So just as a quick frame of reference, if it's shock, you can parry and you can use your basic attacks. If it's not shock, she's unblockable. You can dance around, or you can hit her in her block, so she will run out that unblockable, and the remaining will be taken care of by all of those debuffs that you apply. You will notice every time I apply a debuff on Nebula, she takes 29,000 damage. That is 2% of her HP, and we are able to bring down Nebula quite easily in the end. Trust me, Sentry makes it much more easier. So if I'd say, if you have a Sentry, bring him along. He is going to be the MVP for this path. And one final thing I forgot to mention is the root. If you dash back or you stay in your place for 2 seconds, you are rooted. So you always need to be moving forward or hitting Nebula at least in the block or doing some action, so you are good. Now moving on to the next fight is going to be a NorthStar. Now this fight is quite annoying to deal with, but if you have some things ready in your mind, you can get this fight done quite easily. So first things first, you will need a miss counter, because every time NorthStar is going to throw a special attack, you are going to go back in and try to punish them. Now if you don't have a miss counter, this is going to become a hard fight. One of the best counters for this fight is going to be your Deathless She-Hulk, because on her heavy attack she applies fear. And the second one is going to be your Photon, because in light form she does not miss, and her medium attacks cannot miss, so they help you out really well. Now the way this fight is designed, you cannot throw your specials just like that. You have to be dashing in before you can throw your specials. And also after every special attack, NorthStar is going to go untouchables. So you will notice it's just here. He is untouchable for 2 seconds, and you cannot attack him unless you have any kind of miss counter. Now, if you don't have a miss counter, you're going to get cornered really quickly. And once you get cornered, even if he throws his special attack 1, there's a lot of hits that in the block, the bubble shield node will come into play. And after 10, he will go unblockable, and he will break your block and deal a lot of damage. So you have to really slow play it. Photon works so well because NorthStar for one throws a lot of specials, so your light form is paused. and secondly, you will not miss with Photon, so it becomes like a pretty easy fight to deal with. Even if he throws his SP2, it's mostly energy damage, so Photon can tank that, but I would suggest not pushing to NorthStar to an SP2 because his SP2 can really do some damage. What I like to do is to build up to an SP3 and keep that distance, or I like to hit in the block to push NorthStar away on his corner, because with all of his hits and his animations, he can corner you really fast. Now, some of the options that can work here are going to be your Omega Sentinel, because she can bypass miss. Ironheart is also a good one, easy access to debuff, so she will also work. And not to mention, there is Power Shield node, so the more special attacks you use, the more damage is going to be. But don't forget, there is death by debuff, so the Power Shield doesn't matter. All matters is how many debuffs you can apply. Every time you apply a debuff, the opponent will lose 2% of his HP, so it's a slow fight. The two key factors that are going to help here is one, that you have a miss counter and you don't have to wait the 2 seconds. And second, how many times you can hit NorthStar in the block so you can corner him on his side of the map so you don't get cornered. And yeah, that's about it. That's about this fight. It's a pretty straightforward fight, to be honest. But the difficult part is the spacing and managing all of those hits. Look at me taking all of those hits and almost was about to die there. So yeah, that's about for this one. Let's move on to the next one. Now, fight number 3 brings in Destroyer. Up till now, we will be having a really good time with this path, not really difficult. Now, I brought in a Void here because I wanted those Petrifies and to control the power on Destroyer, so you can easily keep Destroyer to an SP1 and not worry about in the whole fight. But this fight is very slow because Void takes his time to apply those debuffs. And the only way you give damage to the opponent is by applying debuffs. So I would suggest, if you have a Sentry here, he would work amazing, and also this is the right place to ramp him up. You will need Sentry for the fight against Aegon and also the fight against Adam Warlock, so the more he is ramped up, the more better. When I say ramped up, I mean the reality warps. The more they are reality warps on him, the more better he will do. So here, you just need to be careful about his special attacks. Just make sure that you avoid the SP1 with the unblockable. You can also push him to an SP2 every now and then to avoid that power gain, but honestly, if you're using a champion with a Petrify or a Wither, you will easily be able to control the power. So if there is a Wither or Petrify champion that you're using, just keep him to an SP1. If not, push him to an SP2 and be good with evading the special attacks. That's all there is to this fight. It's not really that hard. The first 3 fights are quite easy to deal with in this path. If you bring in the right counters, you can easily get the solos. The fun really starts from fight number 4, that is Photon, and that can be really annoying to deal with. So there's death by debuffs, stage fright, and pressing matters, and stoppable, and heavy bias. So for this one, when he throws his heavy attack, if you're gonna go and punish that heavy attack, you are going to get grit on you, so you can counter the unstoppable on him. But honestly, you don't really need it. There's also heavy bias, so he'll be throwing those heavy attacks. You can literally use any champion here. You can use your Sentry here. You can use your Deathless She-Hulk here. I would prefer if you use champions that don't have any kind of buffs on them, so you do not get Destroyer's Sig ability into play. But if you have to, you can use Omega Sentinel, and you can use Ironheart as well. Shuri is also another good one here. So this fight is nothing else, me just slowly bringing him down with all the debuffs I can muster. So if you don't want to take that much time, I would suggest bring a champion that has faster debuffs and you can get through this fight faster. Even a Deathless She-Hulk is a better option here. Actually, Deathless She-Hulk can do most of the fights on this path. So she can also do NorthStar, she can do Photon, and she can also do Destroyer. Alrighty, cue in annoying fight number 1, that is going to be Photon with overconfident, stage fright, Lango, and flabbergasted. The nodes are very less, but the fight is quite annoying to deal with. The concept of the fight is also pretty simple. You keep getting power on yourself until you get to 3 bars of power, and if you get to 3 bars of power, you are going to be power drained. And if you hit 0 power, for all the power you've drained, you're going to take a multiple of a damage that will really hurt you. Now, you cannot throw specials back to back because there is a node here, stage fright, so you have to wait it out. I think it's around 10 seconds before you can throw 2 specials. But the problem is you keep getting power anyway because of overconfidence node. So the way this works, you have to hit Photon in a block so you can get like a petrify on yourself. The petrify will help you control your power. Instead of gaining power, you will reduce your power. And you have to like really carefully keep the power in between your in between 2 to 3 bars of power or 1 to 3 bars of power, so you don't get overboard to 3 bars of power and you power drain and you take damage for Langur. And you don't have to use a special when you have exact bars of power, so basically you don't have to get to 0 bars of power, otherwise that's going to be trouble. Now if that wasn't enough, you also have to manage Photon and her shenanigans. But the good part is Photon herself applies a lot of debuffs, so that kinda helps you. You notice that I lost so much power as soon as I came in the fight because my power got to 0 because of the petrifies. So that is something annoying that you will have to deal with. But here we are, slowly our power is building up. So we used 1 special attack. Now notice there is a yellow timer that is with a lock against a special attack icon. That means that is stage fright. I cannot use a special until that expires. But you notice I keep gaining power and I cannot get to 3 bars of power before that expires. Otherwise, I'm going to take damage. So very at the end, I was able to throw the special attack. Now you would ask me, what happens if you throw 2 special attacks within the stage fright timer? Well, the timer is removed and you get a lot of degen on you. You notice I hit Photon twice in a block and I got a petrify on me. That is helping me lose power. So every time you're getting too much power and you feel like you're going to go to an SP3, hit Photon in the block, get only 1 petrify. That will help you control the power, and then once the stage fright timer is gone, you can throw that special. And the whole fight is just that. You have to play around with this, with the power management, while looking at Photon's her own shenanigans and her light form, and applying debuffs, because the only way you can do damage in this path is death by debuffs. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. It took me, I think, 3 revives against Photon and I was able to bring her down. Considering how much worse she can be, 3 revives is not bad at all. And here we go, cue in annoying fight number 2, that is going to be an Aegon Warlock. I've already died once, so I am taking you ahead with 67% health on Aegon Warlock. So every time he will throw a special, there is a timer on the grade that you notice. If you don't throw a heavy attack, he will apply a soul barb on you. and soul buff will give you damage amounting to how many buffs you have on yourself. So this is kind of like a double-edged sword, because there's also buffed up node here. The only way you can do damage to Adam Warlock is when your champion has buffs on him, and if you miss the timing on that soul buff and it applies on you, you are gonna take a lot of damage on yourself. So you have to be very careful, and the only way you deal damage is going to be death by debuffs, but you also need to have buffs on yourself. So ideally you need a champion that can have buffs and can also apply debuffs at the same time. Now I went through all the skill and science roster. I could only find five champions that can do that. If you have any others, let me know. I could think of Sentry, Ironheart, Omega Sentinel, Howard the Duck, and also your Ultron. I would still not suggest go with tech champions, because Adam Warlock is a cosmic champion, but if you don't have a choice, go with him. That's why I say attempt this path only if you have a Sentry. Even a 6-star ascended version will work well, because you don't need any kind of boost here, because the 2% damage is capped. Even if you boost, you're not going to do more damage. So bringing in a champion like that will help. Make sure you throw a heavy attack after specials, and you should be getting through this fight. This is going to cost you revives, don't worry about that. 5 to 6 revives should be good, so you are up at 10 revives by now. And the next fight is going to be an Aegon, probably the worst fight in all of Epic of Pain. So basically he does a lot of damage to you, and his hit is always combo meter is at 1000. So you know Aegon does a lot of damage through blocks. He can crit when he has 1000 hits. So whenever he throws a special attack, he is going to apply a cross counter debuff on you with a cooldown, and if you don't knock him down, that does do a lot of damage to you. So your striker is your best friend. And another thing that works really well is going to be intercepts, because every time you do an intercept, you are going to gain a bulwark buff that will increase your block proficiency by a gazillion, and you are able to safely parry Aegon, because even if it crits, you're not going to take any damage. Another way you can deal with that is to push Aegon to an SP2. That is much easier to space, so you can use a heavy attack. If you're not able to do that, look at my health bar. I just lost 30% of my health bar. And not to mention, I still have to keep applying those debuffs to activate that death by debuff node, so I can do some kind of damage. So there's a lot going on here. And Sentry is a good option for this fight, because first he gets indestructible if you get hit by Aegon. Secondly, also, if you have 6 relative warps on Sentry, you can chain a heavy within your basic attack, so that works really well too. Now some other counters are also available. These are your usual suspects that can apply a lot of debuffs very quick. So your Deathless She-Hulk, your Photons, your Shuris, your Omega Sentinels, and also your Ironhearts. All of them work really well. Honestly, this fight requires a little bit of patience. All you need to do is either bring a striker. You can throw that after Aegon throws a special attack and then use a heavy attack. Or you can intercept to get that bulwark to safely parry and then use a heavy, or push Aegon to an SP2, so when he throws that SP2 out, you can space it right and use your heavy attack. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it helps you out. I would say don't attempt the path if you don't have Sentry.